Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Screeps tutorial series. The intent of this tutorial series is to get you off the ground and kind of get you started in playing Screeps. I recommend you play the in-game tutorial first before you come here. And I'm going to be kind of targeting players with a lower level of coding experience to try to get started. And I recommend at the end of the series to either build off this code or restart and design your own code base. This is just to kind of get you familiar with concepts and ways to approach certain goals. So overall, Screeps is an RTS type, base building. You're focused on expanding and upgrading the controller here. And as you can see, this is a room running. You want to mine energy from these sources and then have your creeps upgrade the controller. And you write a code base that gets run every roughly 3 seconds or so on this shard. And at the end of it running, you tell the game to carry out certain actions, and those actions get carried out, such as this creep here upgrading, this creep here is moving, and the creeps will carry out, in a general sense, one action per tick. And everybody's code on the server gets run at the same rate. You can interact with other players via the market, where you can buy and sell minerals, energy, subscription tokens, and there's military actions as well. You can attack and defend your rooms and other players' rooms. The most important concept here is the controller. As you can see, these creeps here are putting energy into it, and this goes into your score for there's a leaderboard that this is how many control points people are getting per month, and you can expand, get more rooms, which means more control points. As you can see, some players on here, like this guy, has several rooms, and so he's going to be able to get more control points than someone with just one room, for example. So let's dive right into picking a room. You want a room that has two sources relatively close to the controller, so there's less time, moving back and forth. Like, let's just look at this room right here. You can see there's these two sources right here, and then the controller's right here, so there's not that much space. They would have to walk, but there's also not that much room to build in this room. And you have to keep in mind defending the room as well. Like, this room wouldn't be ideal, because as you can see here, we got a source, and the controller's over here. That's a lot of walking space. You're going to have a slower start in this room. So a room like this one is really one of the better rooms. As you can see, we have the sources and the controller right here, and then you have a lot of space to build, and you can kind of build your own set of walls around you to defend your territory. Now if we jump right in here, this is in the simulation room. This is where I'm going to, as you can control the tick rate right here. It's more variable. This is where I'm going to be doing most of the early stuff, as it doesn't require any traveling between rooms or anything like that. Once you leave this section, your code actually, the room actually wipes itself. It's just while you're in here, it runs. And that's actually a good segue into your code on the main server runs 24/7. Even when you're offline, everybody's code still runs. So you're able to set up your code and then, close the game, and the game's still going to run and perform. So let's just jump straight into here. First we have, this is the documentation for Screeps. I recommend reading, like these right here would be a good start to get started, and then some of the gameplay concepts here. But what we really want through here is the documentation of the code. This is all the built-in functions for the game you'll be able to use. Like, for example, you can do game.construction sites, and it contains all your construction sites with their IDs as the key. You can get information about your CPU, your creeps, your flags, etc., for everything in the game here. And then this would be a good time to go over CPU. You, as a free player with no subscription, you are limited to 20 CPU, and with a subscription, you are limited by your global control level, which you can upgrade by upgrading controllers and getting more points there. But we won't have to worry about a CPU limit at the start of the game for now. That's more comes into play when you're controlling multiple rooms and have a lot of things going on. So let's start out with just building a creep first. We need a creep to go mine that energy, and then we'll want to put it into the spawn so we can make more creeps. We have 300 of 300 energy in the spawn, so we have 300 energy to work with. Then we'll want someone to start upgrading the controller as soon as possible. So let's look right here, see how we would create a creep. We could go to the spawn, and if we see here, we have spawn creep. So let's see how this works. You give it a body, the name, and then options you want it to have. So we won't have to worry about options for now. So let's just give it a body and a name. We can do game.spawns and get the first element. I believe I named the spawn spawn1. Yeah, there it is right there. Dot spawn creep, and it wanted a body array and a name. Let's name it Heather. And what we're going to put in this body array is body part constants. So if we go into creep here, these are all the body parts we can place into it and their corresponding cost. So to mine this energy right here, we need work parts and we need move parts to take the creep there, and we need carry parts so the creep can carry the energy. So move parts cost 50, work parts cost 100, and carry parts cost 50. The way move works is when your creep moves, it generates fatigue based on the number of other parts it has, and the move will decrease those. So if you have 2 work parts, you would have 2 move parts, and the creep would be able to move with no fatigue each tick. But if you had, say, 5 work parts and 1 move part, it would move and then generate fatigue, and it would take it several ticks to I guess rest before it moved again. So you want to try to balance the move parts for most creeps with the other parts. So let's do one work. We only have 300 energy to work with here at the beginning. It's all that's in our spawn. So we could give it 1 work part, 1 carry part, and 2 move parts. And we could give it 1 more carry here as well. That's 100, 200, or no, sorry, 50, 50, 50, 50, 100. It's 300 energy right there. We hit enter in the console, and we get 0 back, which means that it was successful. And as you can see here, Heather is spawning. Now, she's not going to do anything because this is the code that's running. Anything that's in this module.exports.loop, this is what runs your game loop every tick. There's nothing here. So the creep doesn't know to do anything. We manually spawn them in using the console there. So what we want to do is move code like this into the script so it will get run every tick. So what we're going to do now is start putting a couple things into the script, and I'll show you a couple useful functions that we're going to be using in future videos. So console log will print things to this console here. We could put Heather has spawned. And then we can check here every time, every tick, which is 1 tick per second right now, this code gets run and it prints Heather has spawned. Now there's a few useful things we can use, such as, is there right here in the game. We can check our CPU, our creeps, flags, the map, our spawns, structures, etc., etc. And there's also code examples here on the side that are very useful. So let's look right here at, if we wanted to print what tick we were on, we could do game.time. So we can see here, this increments every tick, because game.time just prints out as an integer what tick we are on. This has been running now 470 ticks. We have game.cpu. You can check out your bucket, your use, the limit. Yeah, it's just because I'm on the simulation room, it's undefined. Didn't think about that. And then the more relevant ones will be like game.creeps. This will have a list of all your creeps here, so if we reference the creep name right there, game.creeps, this gives us a hash table with, you give it Heather, and it's going to return the creep Heather. And from there, there's several functions you can use on a creep, such as the room they're in, their body, their carry capacity. Now let's do carry. The reason I had to do this is because carry is actually its own data structure, and it can have resource energy, it can have minerals. There's no minerals in here, but there's several different minerals you can have, like hydrogen, oxygen, etc., etc. Here you could also, you can tell the creep to attack, upgrade. I mean, you can see here, here's actually all the things you could call on the creep. Screeps has a nice autocomplete. You could do, say, I am a creep. And you can see here, it's returning 0 actually because it's considered okay. And that concludes the introduction to Screeps here. In video 2, we'll dive into actually starting this script right here and being able to get a creep that mines energy and places it into the spawn, so we can spawn additional creeps and eventually start upgrading the controller. In the meantime, if you aren't familiar with programming, I recommend going to something like CodeAcademy and going through their JavaScript course. As you can see right here, let's go to the catalog. That won't be completely necessary. If you don't want, I'm going to try to explain things on a level where someone who isn't completely familiar with programming would still be able to kind of get a handle on things, but I do recommend going through a course similar to this, even if it's not this exact one, and getting an idea of different things that you can do and so you're not completely lost the whole time. Alright, thanks guys, and see you for episode 2.